Tata Steel's Port Talbot. What should the UK government do next? Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
Ta-ta, farewell, and out on your heel. Blast the furnaces and blast an appeal. Ta-ta, goodbye, and so long to warp steel. Workers thrown on the scrap heap and cast a raw deal. Well, it seems that Tata Steel is to move ahead with plans to close both of its blast furnaces in Port Talbot, and the expected loss is nearly 3,000 jobs UK-wide. This has a tremendous impact on a number of levels, not only just the loss of jobs, the loss of skills, but the impact to the local community. Clergyman Pete, I ask you, who's responsible for this? But more importantly, what can the UK government do now?
Well, there's quite a few factors as to say what's responsible. Of course, there is the market for steel and what prices are available as compared with what the cost is for producing the steel on this particular plant. There's all that to consider. There is the UK government's insistence that there's a reduction in what's known as carbon emissions, by which they don't mean carbon is not meant by that. What's meant is carbon dioxide emissions, and so this has resulted in certain changes and ridiculous costs, which means, again, that there's problems retaining staff and keeping the plant open, simply because you're making changes, not because for financial reasons or for the success of the company, but because of I guess what you could call a theological reason, an ideological reason, a prior commitment to reducing the amount of carbon dioxide for no good reason that you'd want to do that. But I guess, gentle listener, we've all heard of people who actually believe this stuff, that carbon dioxide is causing the earth to heat up and that this is happening such that it'd be dangerous. Complete nonsense, of course, but it's been taken on board by governments. And to my surprise, they do seem, from their actions, actually seem to believe it. Certainly that's the way they're behaving, which is just weird to me. But this means... I think this is a major contributor. The changes made in manufacturing to try and reduce carbon emissions has made it less profitable too. So it's that sort of group of reasons together, I would say.
Well, here's the facts. The bottom line is that many of the trade unions were actually proposing to avoid the redundancies by keeping at least one blast furnace going during the transitions. The transitions meaning that to try and move away from coal-fired blast furnaces to possibly looking at hydrogen and many other options. Now, the Indian-owned firm will instead spend £1.25 billion, which includes a £500 million UK government subsidy. So that's good. But the thing is that the idea is it's to move a method of steelmaking that will, what they say, will cut emissions, carbon emissions, and effectively stem the financial loss on its UK operations. Now, at the moment, they're losing, what they say, is £1 million per day. Economically, for sure, any business would look at this and think it's not viable. But there's another factor, isn't there? Let's park the environmental thing for just for one moment. The UK government, as it has done for many, many years, has a target to try and build new houses, let alone new businesses and so on. And guess what? Steel is fundamental to it. If we were to lose the capability, meaning that we didn't have the ability to produce quality steel, and incidentally, I will tell you that globally, the Port Talbot plant is recognized for the quality steel that it produces. But if we didn't have that, then it would mean the only other way of actually having steel is to import it. Guess what? That would increase our carbon footprint, folks. But it would also increase the tonnage of steel in terms of its cost. So there is an issue there. And I challenge the principle of I understand. Let's take the one, at least align with one viewpoint that if you are trying to reduce your carbon emissions down and your carbon footprint, okay, that's fine. But the model is flawed based upon what I've just said, because in order to bring in steel, you are going to have to increase your carbon footprint. There's another factor as well, which I do think is equally important. We've seen this in many other areas. You can go as far back to the 1980s when Thatcher was closing down coal plants and coal fields everywhere. Many, many communities all around the country, from Wales to England, Scotland, and so on, were devastated, meaning that the communities were just simply thrown out, literally on the scrap heap, as I mentioned earlier at the opening address.
Yeah.
And the sad part was, not only was skills lost, but there was nothing to replace it, meaning there wasn't a true transition. Now, what's interesting is that the site of Port Talbot is a significant contributor to the Welsh economy. Now, Tata said that in 2020 to 2021, it contributed 3% of the total economic output and paid what at the time, which is not that long ago, average salaries that were 36% higher than the average UK wage. So it was actually paying very well to the skills and the workers in that particular community and for that particular business. But I come back to, again, the game plan of the UK government. The whole pretext of this podcast is, what does the UK government do? Now, in my opinion, I think it needs to, without doubt, have the capability within the UK to produce steel, because it serves so many other industries. And the other factor is that even though there may be up to 3,000 jobs lost, it's not just 3,000. It's the supporting suppliers. It's the supporting businesses, the supporting communities that would lose their welfare that spins around those. So if you think of the whole supply chain of the devastation of taking out jobs, it's significant. And Clergyman Pete, I want to come back to the principle of what we've seen before, learn from the past. I know it's a different industry. The coal industry is one industry, the steel industry is another, but they are sort of interlinked, as we know. But why would the government allow a community to be devastated? Because once you lose those talents, those skills, that income that you get generated from tax, what do you do from here?
Here, the government is going against a central Mark and Pete dogma. Now, those have been following us for a long time, and we do have, hundreds of very loyal listeners, as well as other people who dip in and out. Those who've been listening for a long time will remember that one of the things we always say is long-termism is important. You have to think long-term. And the government, the UK government, does not think long-term enough. If you lose a community, you say, oh, that's just sad, they get other jobs. No, because if they get other jobs, they're re-skilled, I guess, if they get them, but they're de-skilled from the job that you had in the first place. So you can't simply fire up again. And that's not thought through. And that's happening in lots of different areas. We could list them, but I mean, it just is the case that there's so many different areas where that sort of short-termism, not realizing that that human beings are an important part of the business, and they need to be cared for in order that as a business decision, as an economic decision, it's not simply a sentimentality. You need that community to survive, so that in the future you can resurrect, well, in the past the coal mines, in the future the steel industry. So they're not thinking straight. They're not thinking in the market beat, long term and local. Another part of our mantra is localism. The local community is important because it supports the company. Think long term and local.
Here's back up that point. So Stephen Kinnock, who is the local MP for Aberfan, urged Tata Steel.
Big fan.
Yeah, big fan. Urged Tata Steel on the UK government to rethink their approach. And this is what he said, based on the principle of think long term. By pursuing this is Stephen, his comments, by pursuing a narrow electric arc furnace only model, Tata Steel will be unable to seize the commercial opportunities of the future, while at the same time leaving Britain more dependent on imported steel from countries whose governments won't always have Britain's best interest at heart.
True.
Now, what's interesting, that the Wales economic minister, Vaughan Gethin, said, this is not just an issue for Wales. Steel is a sovereign asset and should be treated as such by the UK government. That's our point. So it's not just the market beat side.
Yep.
Actually, experts are saying it, ministers are saying it, local MPs are saying it. To me, something needs to happen, because if we let it go, or if it's depleted in a way that it can't compete economically for something which produces a quality product, then we are going to struggle to certainly build a future for ourselves, bearing in mind that we're trying to build infrastructure throughout the country. How else will we do that? And we cannot, and we've already seen through the model of outsource, meaning if you rely on other things, and let's take another industry, we've tried that before. If you keep importing gas from Russia, you only need something to go politically wrong, and then costs go up and supplies go down.
Yes. I mean, this is something, and I think I'm going to come back to this in the future episodes on this sort of topic. This is something that should be part of an election platform in Britain, as in, a large proportion of the world is having elections in 2024. And Britain is one of them. And we're one of the central planks for a UK government would be to keep essential manufacturing jobs in Britain, so that we are not reliant on sourcing from outside, because possibility of war, but also you have to think in terms of the environment. They don't think these things through. I mean, if you believe that carbon dioxide was causing global warming, and then shipping things from overseas is obviously a bad idea, really, when you can produce it locally. But anyway, just the environmental impact is worse, generally speaking, if you don't have the manufacturing close to home. This is well recognized. It always used to be known anyway, but we seem to have this fascination with globalism. No, you need your individual country to be working well. So any platform of a major political party in Britain, or even a minor one, should include something like that. Let's keep these businesses running. Let's not try and go back to just having a service sector economy. Let's get the manufacturing working in Britain, and having it sustainable long term by keeping these communities, keeping these skills, and having a long term view rather than short termism, which bedevils the English government, and so we end up lurching from disaster to disaster. What do you think? Part of an election platform?
I love it. I mean, I think that for anybody who is certainly a resident of the United Kingdom, they'll realize when they try to join the dots between losing a manufacturing capability of such significance means that the government could never meet some of its other targets, particularly in their building infrastructure targets.
Yeah. So that's it from Mark and Pete for this week. But have your say. Go to markandpete.com. Make sure you're subscribed. Leave a comment on this, and in fact on every episode. We'd be pleased to hear from you. We will be featuring comments in future episodes, but it's just good to be able to have your say, and other people will see your comments and join in the conversation. But that's it from Mark and Pete for this week. Catch you later. See you next time.